Hey guys, and welcome to today's episode of Give It the Beans. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce one of my complete strength teammates, representing with the t-shirt on. It is Anna. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I can't complain. It's leg day, so I'm pretty tired. But less about me and more about you. And we're going to delve right into the podcast after a little. I don't want to say brief. I want a big introduction of who you are, your a summary of your bodybuilding career to date, but more so, chat about your successes this year as well, in the realms of competing in the bikini class. So, from when you first picked up a dumbbell to now, go.
Okay. So I've been training quite a long time. I started kind of just getting into the gym because I wanted to feel better about myself. And I started off with one of those 6-week programs with an online coach, and I really, really fell in love with bodybuilding. And then after that, I kind of got into a diet with a coach, and he put me on keto, and I didn't
Oh,
agree with it. Yeah. And I wasn't losing any weight. And my now coach, Jake Watts from Amplified Nutrition, was like, please, like, I can see how hard you're working. Let me help you. So after some badgering, I put my faith in him, and I haven't looked back since. So I wasn't with Jake for very long before him and one of his good friends, Emily DeLucy, were like, your body is screaming bikini girl. So I was like, no, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. But that was in the March. I booked a photo shoot in August with Matt Marsh, and it was on photo shoot day that
what year are we talking about?
this was 2018.
Okay, perfect.
So I've been at it a while. But yeah, so that was August 2018. And then on shoot day, Jake said to me, look, there's a show in 3 weeks. I think you'll do well. Do you want to do it? And I kind of thought, why not? So that was UKBFF. That was the Kent Classic at the end of August on the bank holiday. Went in with no expectations, then won and got an invite to the British finals,
Yes.
which was pretty good. So yeah, went to the Brits and got 6th place at my first Brits. So top 6, which was surreal. And then after that, massively just fell in love with it. Wanted to do the same again the next year. Did. I won, and then I got a 4th place at the Brits. But by this point, I'd built up quite a lot of muscle, and I wasn't really what UKBFF were looking for anymore. The girls that placed above me were softer than me. They didn't have as much muscle as me. And it was that kind of decision of, do I want to be who I am, or do I want to do what a judge wants to see? And if I did what the judge wanted to see, and then I got there and that wasn't quite what they wanted, because we all know judges change their minds all the time, would I be disappointed? So I was like, no, I'm going to train how I want to train. I'm going to put on some muscle. I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm very genetically blessed, I think, that I do put on quite a good amount of muscle. So yeah, came back again this year and did 2 rows Brits, which was the best day I've ever had backstage. It was so much fun. The girls were incredible. The staff were amazing. And we all just had so much fun. And I entered the novice category, so it was my first NPC IFBB, and I won. And then I got 3rd in the open for my height class, which was unreal. And the girls that placed above me were well deserving of that. They were phenomenal. Then went on to do the Ben, which was 4 weeks later, the Ben Weeder. And again, got 3rd in my category. Again, really, really happy. The girls were amazing. And then, surprise, I did the PCA UK Open on Sunday just gone.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely over the moon to say that they also kind of rated my physique and give me a 2nd in the open category in my class. So yeah, I've had an amazing 3 years, but an unbelievable year. I can't quite believe that I've managed to bring home the silverware that I have.
I was saying off podcast that I was kind of keeping an eye on the PCA show just on their story because they were putting up the highlight, and I had to like go back. So I was like, wait, that's Hannah. She didn't say this weekend. So it's kind of like, boom, surprise, and hey, you know what? You absolutely fucking smashed it.
Thank you.
I think one of the sort of take homes from what you just said, sit and listen to you, and I hope that any sort of beginner bikini girls listen to that, is you decided that you wanted to train how you wanted to train, and not just to fit what a certain look of a certain federation want. And I think I respect that hugely, because I say to everyone all the time, the past 3 or 4 years I've not trained for classic physique. I just fit that category. And it's only now I'm training in a certain manner to try and maybe perhaps bring up some areas to fit it better. But I think that's a big take home, because a lot of females getting into the sport, well, I mean, talk me through it. You'll probably know better than I do. Was there ever a time that it crossed your mind, right, you know what, maybe I should train differently? What was the definitive decision of, nah, fuck it, I'm going to do it my way?
Yeah, so I think you've always got to have a really good balance. If you are choosing to compete, then that is something you do have to consider. You do have to consider what the federation are looking for. Yeah, I think that is something that you have to find the balance with when you're considering, are you wanting to compete? Are you looking to be a competitive athlete? In which case, what federation are you going to go with, and what are they looking for? So when I was with UKBFF for 2 years, they very much have that X shape. They have that front on pose where they're looking to see a wide shoulder, a small waist, and then good glutes and good legs. They want that clear X. Obviously, Two Bros, they want the X shape, but in a different way. So they're not looking for you to really build up your back. In fact, your hair will be covering your back. And they actually, not the federation, but the feeling is that we encourage long hair because they're not interested in seeing your back. Yeah. Again, you don't have to have long hair to compete with NPC or IFBB, but if you look at the girls that are on stage, they do have, on the whole, long hair. And what you want to do if you're going to compete is you want to be, and I think of the best way to say this without sounding negative, you want to be the best version of a duplicate.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So for me, I trained every body part. I trained like a body part split, like an old school bodybuilding split. And when I started, I did Monday, International Chest Day, Tuesday, back and bi, Wednesday, legs, Thursdays, what did I do? Chest and tri, back and bi, legs, and then I rest, and then repeat pretty much again. And I started adding in more leg workouts and things like that. But it got to a point where everything was pretty good. And then my coach said to me, okay, well, you need to build up your imbalances.
Yeah. So
my upper body was bigger than my lower. So then you start to tweak how you're training, on what you're training, and the frequency that you're training. And as we know, for bikini girls, we're focusing on our delts and our glutes.
Yep. 100%.
That's what they want to see. So you have to find that balance, and I think it's important that you love training, because if you don't, then you're not going to be willing to tweak it to fit how you need to look. And I think Phoebe Hagen talks about this a lot, and it's about body sculpting. It's body building. You're not constantly trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger. You're trying to improve upon the look that you have.
Yeah, that's a very good shout, because she, I think I had her on a podcast a while ago. She said she's a bit too muscular, and they kind of said she can't get any bigger or they won't place her. Which I suppose when you if someone said that to me, I don't think I'd compete, because I fucking love getting big. But
yeah,
then it kind of comes down to, if you want to be a professional bodybuilder, then that's the case. But a lot of people listening to this podcast perhaps don't want to be professional bodybuilders, and that's all good. But what I want to do is just sort of delve right into today's podcast, and some of the topics we're going to discuss is kind of just like what it was kind of like for you competing during a global pandemic, and with having, shows pushed back and uncertainty and gyms being closed and whatnot. And I guess if we kind of go back to the start of lockdown, what were the planned shows? And from those planned shows, how did your prep change? How did you cope with training from home, etc., etc.? So talk us through that if you could.
Yeah. So I actually started prep in January with a view to doing some earlier shows. I was aiming to do, there was a 2 rows at the beginning of May, which I think was sponsored by JP, and I was looking to do that one. And then my body didn't really respond to prep at the beginning of the year, so we called it quits after about 5 weeks, and then I restarted again on the 7th of March, and then we went into lockdown on the 18th.
Yeah. So
the initial plan was to do a show at the end of July with 2 rows, and then do the London PCA.
Okay.
I think that was at the end of September.
Yeah.
So it was like the last shows that I could do before both federations went to the Brits.
Yeah.
That was kind of the process. And when we went into lockdown and the gyms closed, at no point did I go, well, there's no point.
Yeah.
Because for me, prep is not about the show, it's about the process. And I like pulling back the off season and seeing what I've managed to create the whole time. I think if you're constantly training and building and everything else, and you never pull back and cut off and kind of look at what you've got underneath, then you lose that drive and that motivation, because you're like, oh, I'm not getting anything back from it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of progressed on. Training from home was interesting.
That's a word, isn't it?
Yeah, it was interesting, but I definitely got into my groove, and I kept myself accountable. I also implemented some simple little things like, I noticed that a lot of people started going for a walk pre-workout, or like getting in their car and just driving around the block, or taking themselves away from that situation, creating a new routine. And I am so driven by routine and structure that I needed to do that.
Yep.
So after I finished work, I would go for a little walk around the block and I'd have my pre-workout. And that was how I did it. And I didn't have a huge amounts to hand, but I worked on tempo and I did countless supersets and drop sets. And I just really, really focused on that mind to muscle connection. And I did find myself failing. I mean, it towards the end, it was harder to fail. But then going back into the gym, there were only a few movements, like, for example, a squat. My squat got weak, but it wasn't, I don't think, a tissue issue. It was, I think it was more like just over time, when you've not squatted for a long time, you lose your form, and getting back into that is quite difficult.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like many, that focusing on tempo, I mean, I've had a lot of clients say that it really helped them when they went back training in the gym, like actually just connect with the move so much more and get more out of it, get, like, within 4 weeks, be way stronger than they were before lockdown. And this is where, like, I take my hat off to you, because I had a little place to train the whole time. I was very fortunate for that. But people like yourself and my clients and whatnot, doing the do from home, and whether, doing a foam roller, banded, drop, set, back squat, rest, pause, after, I suppose, a wee while, 12, 14 weeks, I'd imagine there's every thought in your head telling you to not do it, and you can be fucked. But you got it done, and for the majority, well, I guess what I'm assuming is that your prep start again throughout lockdown when the shows re-announced, or what happened there?
I didn't stop prep.
Damn, you've been down.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I am one of those really unfortunate people that my body doesn't lose weight very easily, and so I don't get cheat meals or off-plan meals, whatever you want to call them. When my body does respond, then we utilize refeeds towards the end to keep me full.
Yeah.
But I celebrated my 30th birthday in lockdown as well.
So did I.
Yeah, I mean, what a way, eh?
Yeah, it was 3 days before I celebrated, but we got, I think it was the 22nd of March, we got locked down Sunday night. My birthday was on the 18th.
Right, okay.
So, yeah. And it was a week out before the Ben Weider, originally in March.
Yes.
That was the one I was supposed to do. But, hey-oh. Anyway, sorry. I just wanted to say, for those that are listening, if you haven't just realised that, Hannah prepped for 24 weeks. Is that right?
So I did a stint at the beginning of the year. I took 2 weeks off, and then I restarted on the 7th of March, and then my last show was on Sunday. I haven't even counted because I think I'll cry.
So that's seven months in a week from when you start prep again. So 7 times 4, people are going to call me out 28. Add another week, 29. Add the 5 weeks that you've done, 34. Maybe someone's going to listen to that and just call me out, but 34 weeks.
My first prep though, I started. This is how sad I am. I remember dates and numbers and everything else. I started in 2018 on the 15th of January with the keto diet that was not very successful. And I finished on the 13th of October. So it was nearly 10 months.
Fuck me. So you're used to that.
I'm so, and even in my off season, I stick to my structure. So for 3 years, I've eaten to a meal plan. Like, it just works for me.
Yeah, 100%. But a heck of a lot of admiration for you. I do a 12, 14 week prep and I'm fucked by the end of it. But no, that's absolutely awesome. Now, we're going off a little bit of a tangent here, but that's completely fine. Now, in previous years, you've had that certainty of, right, okay, let's say it was supposed to be the end of April. Right, that is the show. I'm fucking all in. I'm going for it. Now, it was obviously a bit of a head fuck when lockdown happened, right?
Yeah.
As you continued to your prep and then they announced a show, I remember that they announced it, but then they pushed it back.
Yeah.
So how was that for you? Did you kind of have that excitement of, right, shows are here, then they, a few weeks later they reschedule it? How did that feel?
That was hard. That was really hard. Part of me never believed that. So I never get excited for shows. I almost pretend like they're not happening.
Right.
So for me, when they were like, oh, this is the show day, even up until PCA on Sunday, I was like, sure, okay, that's the show day. Like, I think you have to go into it with the view that you're not doing it for that one day. Now, I know that we are, but if you pin all of your purpose and your goals and everything else to one day, you're going to be so lost and so upset. And say that doesn't turn out for you. Say you go in there with this expectation you're going to come home with silverware and you don't. My God, that must be a hard pill to swallow.
What you're doing is you're just retelling my own story from 3 years ago. Because that is exactly what I done for a year and a half, was fixated on one date and one date alone. Yeah. And then listened to all the bullshit, got focused on one day, winning, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Was too big for the class.
Yeah.
You guys were small, didn't place, had no idea at the time why, just thought, oh my God, I'm shit, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden it was just like, what do I do now? And
I was so lost. I mean, I woke up this morning, I did a post about it because I think I have quite a lot of new athletes, and I say athletes because they're not just bikini girls, but male bodybuilders and physique guys as well, that they go in and they're so excited for their show and they start maybe a year before because they're like, oh, I'm going to get a coach for my off season, which by the way is the best way to do it in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
But from that point, when they decide they're doing a show in 2021, you're gearing yourself. Everything you do every day is for that. And when that's not there anymore and you've done it, you wake up and you're a bit like, okay, so everything I've been working towards all this time is done now. And it's this kind of emptiness of what am I supposed to do now? And that's, I think, when people go off the rails. And you see people not only physically their health is suffering because they've kind of maybe started binge eating or whatever it may be to try and deal with those feelings. But mentally, it's so hard.
Yeah.
You have to kind of think about it as a journey because you enjoy the journey, not for that one day.
Yeah, 100%. I always say that if you get into bodybuilding because you want to compete, you're getting into it for the wrong reasons.
100%.
And if someone perhaps loses their way after a show, I'll always say that you never started this to win that show. You started it to be better.
Yeah.
You are better, you'll get better. And I guess I always just try and switch the focus, and you probably do this as well, is just to not, I suppose, getting jacked as fuck, because not all females want to, but just on performance and getting so strong.
Yeah.
That's what I always place an emphasis on. But so just awesome to sit and listen to that from someone else describing the same scenario that I've openly been through. However, although I felt lost, I still wanted to get really jacked. So I just kept doing the do.
Yeah. And I think that's that weird thing though, that's the difference between girls and guys on the whole, because I'm very much like, let's get stacked. Like, I really like training. And then sometimes like my coach has to pull me back and go like, okay, Han, maybe don't do back as often because your back is taking over, or maybe do this a little bit more or whatever. But I think guys, they have this, okay, well, I'm going to grow now. Whereas girls, we can't eat in the same way. We gain weight quicker. We don't put on the tissue as quickly. And maybe if it's a girl and she's looking at her boyfriend or a good friend or a family member and she's going, but his post show is different to my post show.
Yeah.
And it's tough as girls. It is really tough. I mean, the social pressures we have coming onto us about people going, oh, you've gained. I mean, my friend said to me this morning that someone said to her, let me see your off-season picture, and then they called her a fatty. I mean,
shit.
My God, people, we are like, me right now, my lowest weight was 44.6 kilos. And people will think that is how I look. No, like, and that pressure post-show is so hard that I think we need to take a step back and go, yeah, guys go in and they're like, let's train. But girls are like, but I don't want to have these big arms in that pretty dress. Now I can wear the pretty dress and go out with my friends, but I don't want to gain the weight, and I want to do this, but I don't want to do that. And everyone expects you to now be this social butterfly, but you're also in your head, you're like, well, I've got to reverse now.
Yeah.
And it's not, the diet isn't done when show is done, but you don't have the goal. So like you say with that, those reps and the sets and everything, my logbook, I use it all year round, and I will set my goals based on improvements to lifts.
Yeah.
And I also write myself a new training plan, obviously okay it with my coach, but I write myself a new training plan post-show, so it's exciting to get into something new. And it's those little things that you can do that will make kind of those goal setting and that new era a little bit easier.
Yeah, you know what? I think you really hit the nail on the head about that. It's not, by all means, it's not right, and I don't agree with it. But the social pressures that are put upon and the judgment it's ridiculous. Because what you'll often hear is maybe someone saying, "Oh, so you're eating loads now, eh? So because you're not dieting, so you're just eating whatever you want." You go, "No, it's just 44 kilos isn't how I'm going to walk about all year round." So is that something? Did you when you had first dieted? How did you sort of experience that pressure? So, how did you deal with it? How did you cope with it? How did you overcome it?
The first time I dieted and the first time, I came out of that prep phase was really, really tough. Like, I really, really struggled. I put on quite a lot of weight quite quickly. I didn't binge, but I did kind of go, oh, well, now I can go out for dinners and I can eat with my family on a Sunday and I can do all those things. And actually, you can't go back to normal. But as a new competitor, you don't necessarily realize that. And no, I didn't have any bikini girls around me to kind of give me that guidance, because it was 3 weeks into that show and it was all very new to me. And then I would go into the gym and there was one guy who looked at me and went, "Cool, how much weight have you put on now?" And I was out with two friends one night, and I remember this guy in a bar said to me, "I'd never date someone like you. Like, you're so intimidating. Look at your arms, look at your legs." And I was like, it's this idea that those sorts of things can be said to a woman who trains, because we're expected to deal with stuff like that. And it's tough. It's really tough on a new competitor. Yeah. But I'm a little bit sharp at times. So I've kind of grown a thick skin. And when people say things like that to me now, I would kind of turn around and go, like, well, I'd rather look like me than you, mate. Like, and I think that's what you have to take, that really thick skin with bodybuilding as a female. And I'm small, but I kind of think about the physique girls, and I think they look phenomenal. But they must get it as well, and it is tough.
I've often said that any guy that makes those sort of comments has a massive inferior complex in their head, because they fear that more than likely you are stronger than them, and that sort of inside their own head belittles them.
Yeah.
Done anything just because you fucking love training, and then that reflection of their own insecurity is portrayed in a silly fucking comment that should have been not even mentioned. And it's not right. It shouldn't be, but it still goes on. But what you just said there, I think, is massive for any beginner out there, because there's been a couple of clients over the past few weeks that have said, "Oh, my previous friends, or my previous, person I used to work with, blah blah, has said this, said that," and I'm always like, "Fuck what anyone else said."
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in the last 3 years, I've had people telling me. I mean, I love my mum, but she said to me a few weeks ago, she was like, "Okay, now you look anorexic." So you get told, like, you look ill, that you look anorexic, that veins aren't nice on a girl. I personally love veins. If I get stomach veins or arms like that are mapping up, I'm like, this is a good sign. But yeah, like you get comments like, you look ill. People stare at you in the supermarket because you look different. And obviously, if you are unfortunate that you skull face up, you look like a crackhead, let's be honest. And then you get other comments, like you're in the gym and someone will go, "Geez, like your shoulders." And they're impressed, but they're also a bit like, it's a bit much. So you have to grow a thick skin, and you have to say to yourself, no, I'm doing this because this is how I want to look.
Yeah.
And I like to be strong. And if I ask you for the dumbbells when you're done with them, don't take offense, work harder.
Yeah, fucking love that.
Just work harder. If I'm 44 kilos and lifting the same as you, work harder.
Absolutely. I guess one thing I never even said at the start of the podcast was just actually how little you are. Is it? I don't want to say 5 foot. Is it 4'11"? Is it 5 foot?
Is it 4 foot on the nose? No, yeah. I thought I was 5 foot on the nose, but two bros at registration, I am 5 foot and 3/4.
Right, okay. I stand corrected. I was...
Don't you forget them 3/4.
I need to find some way of introducing her and talking about how small she is in height, but I couldn't think of anything, so I thought, I'll ask you. But there we go. Official, above 5 foot. Now, I guess, by the way, that was an awesome tangent, and I think a huge value for especially girls that are not just getting into the sport, but girls that maybe they've been in it a year, but they've not really attained their true progress, and then they hire a coach and they gain this muscle mass, and all of a sudden they get those comments. I hope that they do re-listen to this, or they reach out, they thank you for your words of wisdom, because you've been there, you got the t-shirt, you threw it away, or you've told the guys to beat it.
Yeah.
But if we kind of
girls, get yourself a muscle worshipper. They'll love you.
There we go. See, sometimes, right? Like I'll see I always say that any high level athlete female just fucking kicks my ass in the gym when we train together. But I'll say the comment like, geez, but I'm like, fuck, geez, I wish I was fucking strong as that. Or I'm like, I wish I was fucking doing that much more body weight than me.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm looking at it from a different perspective, because I think as male bodybuilders, we just have an appreciation of what it's taken you to get there.
Yeah.
So we're like, damn, fucking hell, well done.
Yeah.
Whereas someone that maybe doesn't understand the sport or the process will always have a skewed view of what it is, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so there's going to be some listeners out there that have thought, you know what, that's amazing that you've competed this year. I was going to compete next year, but you know what, I'm thinking of just fucking sacking it off because restrictions, gyms have now closed in Liverpool, whatever else. I wondered, you know, do you have, like, from your experience this year, you know, 10, 11 months of prep, would you have any advice for them? Would you kind of tell them to go ahead with it and that it wasn't too different from a normal prep, quote unquote? Or I guess maybe not, I'm not saying to tell them what to do, but just advice you perhaps give them.
Yeah. So whether it was COVID or not, I always say the same thing to people. Set yourself a goal. I have a vision board, which is in my kitchen. I look at it every day, and it's not just fitness goals. It's like career goals, mental health goals, whatever it is. Like one this year was be less stressed, because I'm such a high stress individual. But I think set yourself some goals and put them in a place that you can see and have them in the back of your head. I'm a firm believer in visualizing, but at the same time, if you say to yourself, I'm doing this next year, there's instant pressure. Don't do that. I literally take my prep meal by meal. I'm like, okay, in 3 hours, I'm going to eat this. In 2 hours, I'm going to train this.
Yeah.
I want to go to bed at this time. And you just do it little by little. But if you think about it, like, I don't know, August 2021, I'm going to do a show. It just feels like pressure. Like, well, what if I want to go on holiday? What if I want to do this? What about so-and-so? They're getting married. Or don't worry about it. Just take it day by day and just see what happens. And if you come to that point and you want to do a show and they are going ahead, talk to your coach. Like, see what they think. Have a really open and honest conversation with them. Don't think that it's all on you, because that's the partnership. Yeah.
Fuck, man. You're so right, because there's a few athletes that have got on board, and we're speaking about next year.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of the mindset. I'm like, look, show dates aren't out for next year yet.
Yeah.
We don't know. I says we can come up with a hypothetical plan of, okay, we're going to maybe perhaps be extremely lean around the month of May next year. If there's a show, yeah, we'll do it. If not, we're doing a photo shoot that we said we would maybe perhaps do. You know what I mean? Just literally like your scenario of you did your show 3 weeks after a shoot, having not really known much about it. The difference is between yourself and maybe perhaps those clients is they're checking in bikini poses. You know, because one day they want to compete, we've just not set a date. But I absolutely love it, because what you mentioned there about maybe perhaps you want to do on a holiday or start a family, like there'll be so many people just dying to get away. Not Ibiza, maybe just to fucking Spain or France or wherever.
Maybe you just want to pop down to Cornwall, like. But there are ways to do all those things, as we know. You can, like, if that's the case and you want to do both, you can do both. I know so many people that have got an Airbnb and they've done holidays and they've prepped in their kitchens and they've done if it fits your macros. But there are ways to do things. But if you're going to put that pressure on yourself, I mean, like you say, they're not even out yet. My coach, for example, won't even talk to me about shows until the new year comes in. And then he starts going like, okay, so you know, you're 20 weeks from the first show or whatever it may be. And that's how we think about it. And we also think about it, which is another thing for first timers. You're also eager to get on stage. You're so eager that you're like, okay, the first show's in March, the last weekend of March, that's what I'm going to do. All right, but the British finals are in October.
Yeah.
What, are you going to prep? Then you're going to go to maintenance, or you're going to come out of a prep and then you're going to go back down again? That is so hard to do. And while you're putting your body through 2 preps, you don't need to.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to think about as well. Think about the bigger picture. Don't just think about, I want to compete in March because that's 6 months away. Yeah. Think about it like, the long-term goal, and your prep is just as much about your off-season, because if you diet down and you've not gained the muscle, it's completely pointless.
Yeah.
So don't live for the stage. It will always be there. Literally, like, Europe run all the way through and pretty much, I think, until December.
You're so right. And if we were to kind of stay on the advice to the beginners, is that, do you feel that, you mentioned obviously they're very eager to get on stage. Do you see a lot of females, I don't see it too much, I suppose there's not many shows this year, competing too early with not enough tissue, or do you think that's becoming, not being eradicated, but becoming less each year? What's your thoughts?
No, it's such a problem, because I think there are more people that live for the glitz and glam of stage than there are for people that live for bodybuilding. And something I always say is, I compete because I love bodybuilding. I don't bodybuild because I compete.
Yeah.
If there was no stage, I would still eat my meal plan every day, and I would still train, and I would still do everything I needed to do, and I'd still cut because I'd want to see it, have a little mini cut, check it out, reassess, go again. Like, that wouldn't change for me. So if tomorrow they said, look, we're banning competing, okay.
So it's a good, really, really good way to look at it. So maybe if you could go back to the start of your journey within the bodybuilding scene,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that you would do it all over again without hesitation.
Yeah.
Would there be anything that you would do differently? That's a big one.
That is a big question.
I'll give you my answer, is that if I do it all again, I just train arms a bit more, because my arms look shit now. That's my answer. But if we're thinking about bodybuilding itself, from the start of your journey to into competing and whatnot, anything along the way, not necessarily at the start, but anything along the way that you look back and you think, you know what, that's what I should have done differently, and that's what maybe someone not shouldn't do, but maybe should learn from a mistake or something like that.
Like lessons learned.
Yeah.
Okay, I personally don't believe in regrets. I think everything happens for a reason. I think there is the butterfly effect. So I wouldn't necessarily change anything I'd done, but my advice, if I was talking to myself and to others, just have a little bit more confidence. Like, be kinder to yourselves. Be more appreciative of what your body is capable of doing and what it continues to do. The shit that we put our bodies through, and they go, yeah, cool, let's go again. Right. Also, when someone says to you, this is something I'm still learning, when someone gives you a compliment, and whatever it may be about your physique, and they say, like, you're really good at this, or you're really strong, or you would be good at this, say thank you, take it on board, and have a little bit more belief in yourself. I'm still working on that. I have no, like, I might come across really confident on stage, but I mean, that's like, I mean, you know, like Beyonce has two. There's Beyonce, and there's like whatever her name is, Sasha Fierce. My stage is not me. Like, I'm an absolute nervous wreck at the side of the stage, and then I come on and I'm different. But I have real confidence issues. So I would say with people, be confident and know that you are good at what you do, and just give everything. And at the end of it, I always say, if you can put your hand on your heart and you can say, I gave absolutely everything I could, there's nothing I would change because I did everything in my power to be the best version of myself, then you've done it.
What you know what's awesome to sit here and listen is the passion that you speak with in regards to bodybuilding.
Yeah.
You could tell that it's not bullshit. It's something that you really true care, you deeply care about, and you can see that in the conviction how you speak, and I really, like, I can sense it, and I hope the listeners sense that as well, because I guess it's more prominent in the female side of things, but maybe not spoken enough in the male side of bodybuilding things, is the lack of confidence, or the never-ending pursuit to be better will always be there. Yeah. But we are, as bodybuilders, very critical on ourselves at all time. And at times, I guess even us guys don't accept compliments.
Yeah.
we'll get, oh, you look sick, and they say, yeah, they looked alright, but fucking my arms are shit. Right?
The amount of guys that I hear go like, yeah. Well, you'll say to them like, oh my God, you look so good at the moment. And they'll say something like, oh, no, I've got this sick pump product or whatever. And you're like, no, you look good. Well, yeah, like, but I'm carrying here, or I need to bring my back up. Or you're like, no, just say thank you.
Yeah, 100%. I also think a thing to touch on there that we haven't mentioned in the podcast is when it comes to competing in the bikini class, it's not just to do with your physique. It is to do with your confidence, your stage presence, your makeup, your bikini, and everything else in between. Is that something that you place a huge emphasis on for beginners?
Yeah. So whenever I get a DM about, oh, I want to compete next year, I want to compete, what would your advice be? Practice your posing early on. Don't worry necessarily about the federation, because posing is like multi-layered. It's also about being able to hold a pose for a long time, because trust me, your legs will start shaking, you will start to fatigue on stage. People think that it's just going up there and doing a little few moves or whatever. Posing is hard. It's hard to make it look effortless. So just get really good at your posing. Get good at that mind to muscle connection. And when you've got a really good mind to muscle in your posing, that will benefit your training as well.
100%.
Don't pick a bikini because yellow is my favorite color. No, it doesn't work like that. You pick a bikini based on your skin color, your hair color, depending on what federation you're in, depending on what category you're in. For example, PCA will allow you to be a bit more flamboyant with your designs. And also you'll notice that the physique girls have these incredibly intricate designed bikinis in all these wonderful colors and everything. But Two Bros or NPC or UKBFF, they like blondes in red and blue, they like brunettes in blue and green. They like simple colours. Don't get over the top. Also, your bikini should draw attention to you. So don't go for dark colours on the whole, unless your physique is absolutely out of this world. You want to draw attention to yourself. Your hair, like I mentioned earlier on, depending on your the federation that you're with. One of the girls had feedback the other week that the curls weren't right. They will drill down into that. Your makeup should be good enough that it can be seen from far away on stage, but don't necessarily match your eyeshadow to your bikini color, because if you've got a red bikini, you don't want this big red eye or like this massive blue eye. Yeah. But don't look like a drag queen. It's down to details like, and Jasmine at Compact is fantastic for information about this, but your earrings, depending on the length of your hair and depending on the length of your neck, you don't want the earring to sit on your collarbone, but you want it to be near your collarbone.
Right.
The type of shoe depends on the type of federation.
Yeah.
There's so many things. And whilst you're doing all of that, you also need to be on stage looking like you're not thinking about any of that.
Yeah, I guess that's something that us male bodybuilders don't appreciate, because I'll tell you, my hair preparation before my show was, my face preparation was just towel.
Yeah.
Done.
Sweet.
I'm on the tan. Here we go. So yeah, I guess that's something that I don't appreciate, but I know is like hugely important, and not something that, I'll be honest with you, a few years ago I really thought about, because I was an inexperienced coach, whereas it's kind of like now I'm always like, when I'll have a beginner come on board, I'm like, right, you need to speak to the other girls in the team, because I don't have long hair, I don't do my makeup, I don't wear earrings, but those girls do. So awesome advice, because a lot of them will just kind of think, right, I'll just get a bikini, I'll just get a pair of shoes, I'll just do my own makeup or whatnot. But actually, you done your own makeup. And
yes, I did.
Because I remember you were giving it the whole, I can't do it.
The long blink.
Yeah, that was
the boomerang.
That's the one. On your story. But I digress. Listen, I think there's been a heck of a lot of knowledge bombs throughout the episode. I think that you've given a lot of the listeners some insight to what it's been like for you to compete this year versus other years. But also, it was really, really good for you to go into that whole what shouldn't be your typical stereotype comments that you might receive.
Yeah.
Deal with that. That's going to be huge. But one thing that I always ask listeners, I always ask people that come on the podcast is, if we were to speak, it doesn't necessarily need to be about bodybuilding. It can be about anything. But just, could you think of the biggest lesson in life that you've learnt to date? And from that lesson, is there any advice that you give to the listeners? It can be absolutely anything. It doesn't need to be related to bodybuilding.
Yeah. Do what makes you happy. Don't worry about anyone else. Don't worry about what society tells you should be doing or what your timeline is. Don't worry about what anyone else is doing. If you are happy and you have a roof over your head and you have a full belly and the people around you love you and you love them, and you've done your vision board and you've achieved things that you set out to achieve, just be happy. Because if COVID, or as I call her, Rona, has taught us anything, life is so short and it can be taken from you at any moment. And we've lost some incredible people this year. And I think we just need to be a little bit more appreciative of how good we have it. And just live every single day like it's your last. And if you love someone, tell them. And when you hang up that phone call, say I love you, text me when you get home. It's such a small thing, but I do it with my friends. And I think it's important. Like, you just don't know when it's going to be the last. So just enjoy your life.
Yeah, that epic, pal, epic. Even bodybuilding aside, you speak with passion in your voice, which is great. So for anyone listening that has enjoyed today's episode, they maybe want to give you a follow, they want to reach out, tell they enjoyed it and whatnot. Could you just maybe drop your Instagram handle so they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, it's just at Hannah Wares, Wares. Obviously, me and Vaughan are complete strength athletes.
Woo-hoo.
Best products on the market. My coaching team is Amplified Nutrition. If you've got any questions whatsoever, drop me a DM. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone anytime. There is no question that's too silly or whatever. I'm an open book, so ask away.
That's appreciative, and I hope that the listeners do take you up on that. Saying that, I hope that you don't get bombarded now with 50, 100 DMs. But hey, maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe you'll get a few more followers from it. But
do you know what? Like, you can't say ask away and then be like, oh my god, there's too many questions.
Yeah,
like, just ask. It's fine.
Right. Listen, a massive thank you for myself and everyone here at Vital Physique and Give It the Beans on for coming on. That really was an epic episode, and I'm sure that I speak for yourself, me, and everyone at Complete Strength that when it comes to whether it's COVID, competing, whether gyms are closed or whatnot, or wherever you are in the world, to just give it the beans.
Yeah,